When we watch a film, we hardly ever consider the amount of work that has been put into the final product. We enjoy the picture and the sound, follow the plot and feel the emotions, but little do we know about where it really comes from. Today we are going to take the viewers behind the scenes and focus not on the directors, actors, or the cameraman. Instead, we are going to take a look at the people and things that in every movie are just taken for granted. The sound effects provided by the sound recording experts, also known as the foley artists. This is the part of the whole crew which makes sure that when we see a horse on the screen, we can actually hear its hooves stamping on the ground at the same time, and thanks to this, they bring the whole thing to life. All the buzzing, crunching, clicking and bumping is created in a special studio with the help of not only a very advanced technique, but also thanks to quite plain yet effective basic tools. Some of them come from things that would surely surprise you and imitate the sound of everyday life or an alien invasion. So, have a small look at the world of sound effects. Surprising how famous movie sounds are made. Robin Hood. In this film, the sound experts had to recreate a lot of the sounds from everyday life. And it is not that easy if we take under consideration the fact that not many of them are heard in today's cities. For example, the idea of using swords. Here, some foley artists use another weapon that belonged to a cartoon character, a friendly and brave Raphael from the Ninja Turtles. By pressing it against a regular sword, they obtained the sound that imitated the original medieval weapon. But it is not the only tool used for the purpose. Another one, in a very similar scene, is simply the kitchen spatula. Also, the clothes of the medieval warriors were quite loud and had to be included in the overall soundtrack. Therefore, the sound effect team had to use their imagination, and they came up with a leather bag, which they crunched and squeezed in different ways, in accordance with the actual picture. Sounds pretty real, doesn't it? Hey, if you want to learn more about surprising sounds in your favorite productions, subscribe to our channel and like it, just to make sure you will not miss any of our other videos and ideas. Jurassic World. It is not a secret that it is impossible to re-record the original sounds of dinosaurs. This is why, in case of the Jurassic World, the sound effects crew became really inventive. It turns out that when we hear some of the enormous, scary creatures, we actually hear the sounds of monkeys, ostriches, or even lions, all combined and mixed together. That seems surprising? So listen to the next idea of that creative team. To have a background for some dinosaurs' movements or grunts, they went to factories and recorded the sounds made by big machines. This mechanical vibe is strong and rather intimidating. What goes together with those frightening creatures, doesn't it? But that is not the end of the astonished usage of sounds in these movies. The next one is even better. Lions, ostriches, and monkeys are not the only animals that we can hear as some dinosaurs. The greatest and the most thrilling of all, the sound of T-Rex, was obtained thanks to humble pigs. Yes, you have heard me right, pigs. And when it comes to the sound of enormous jaws clapping in front of amused viewers, it is just auxiliary. Well, that changes a lot, or not. Alien. Talking about celery, it has not been used only once. Actually, the sound has become quite popular among the foley artists. Therefore, we can hear it in Alien at a very specific time. That is, when the crew members are being eaten by the monsters. That is not a good thing to remember when you have your piece of celery again. So let's move on. The space creatures have a very specific blood that interacts with anything it touches. Here, they use Coca-Cola together with hot iron.
I mean, it's a fire hazard, but...
In the film so full of sounds like this one, it is easy to find many more examples in that matter. The most basic one, and at the same time the most scary, is the sound of that awful aliens coming after the main characters. Sounds really frightening. But when we realize that it is simply garlic being twisted and turned in one's hands, well, the magic of the world fades away and takes a little bit of our fear with it.
Basically, crunchy, grinding noises.
Oh, and when the crew moves around the ship, they also have to be properly heard. At the time when the situation is quite normal and nothing special is going on well. The steps are just the steps. It becomes more interesting when the hustle and bustle begins. Here the experts decided to have some fun themselves, and so we can hear very specific sounds of stamping and squashing fruit, those really juicy ones. Star Wars. Here comes the classic. You can love it or hate it, but there is no way you do not recognize the sweet sound of the newest Robot Family Edition, BB-8. The small droid has stolen our hearts. However, it took the sound effect team some time to create the sound of its moving across the desert. In this case, they used a disco ball. Yes, a real sparkling disco ball, and moved it backwards and forwards on a sandy surface. Whereas this idea seems incredibly easy and quite plain, when it comes to the movements of the stormtroopers, the situation looks a little bit different. Their armor, a characteristic and very complicated structure, must create a special sound. After all, it is a lot of plastic and metal dangling around with each step and shot. And to everybody's surprise, there is only one person responsible for all that. One woman in the team shakes a motorcycle helmet, squeezes a leather jacket, and at the same time, moves some rollerblades. The cacophony that looked disorganized and foolish at the beginning turned out to be the sound that accompanies not one, but a few generations. The Hobbit. When it comes to creating a really big and impressive sound, there is more than just one person needed. Let's take for example scenes of a panicked crowd. They run, scream, and shout in a very chaotic way. Here, the Foley artists took advantage of a completely different source of material. In The Hobbit, the sound effect team used their own friends and families and asked them to run about shouting and creating a fuss. It must have been quite a show for those who were watching the process of filming. Imagine the face of a passerby who noticed a man panicking and waving his arms in the air. Not to mention a whole bunch of them. Probably in New Zealand, where a whole saga was filmed, they do not really pay attention to that kind of actions anymore. The Lord of the Rings. Here is another huge project that has been shot in the recent years. And once again a great place to show the sound effect team's many talents. On the internet, we can find people creating and recreating the sounds that could be heard in the original movie. They are so well done and so effective that one can start wondering if they are not original and the artists are simply presenting their own skills online. Nonetheless, it could have been included in the original picture. And we are talking not only about the sound effect themselves, but also about the level of synchronicity that they presented. It is just right on time. Even the smallest moves, when the character taps the other on the shoulder, is immaculate. Created with a piece of paper, proceeded with incredibly carefulness, takes us straight to the wondrous world of Tolkien's trilogy. Man of Steel. Movies about superheroes are all about shooting, exploding, and action. No wonder the sound effect team has a lot to do here. And yet again, they reached out for some well-known and incredibly effective solutions. Ladies and gentlemen, the main actor here, the sand. Yes, this is the magical sound producing factor that has been the Superman's best friend throughout the whole film. Even when it comes to the Winterland, when the main hero walks across the icy surface, once again, in reality there is no ice or snow, there is just sand, and no one has ever noticed that. By the way, it is interesting how much of sand was actually needed and used in the recording studio. With the help of that humble tool, the sound effect experts were able to recreate Superman's footsteps or sounds of him hitting the ground. Brilliant in its simplicity, isn't it? However, Superman has another very characteristic part of his image. The cape has been with him always, and we cannot just imagine the sound of him flying without that additional sounds of it floating in the air. Here the Foley artist used a piece of material and moved it close to the microphone. Mark Constanzo. In the film industry, there are some legends that have been creating sounds to many well-known productions. One of them is Mark Constanzo. That guy has participated in the process of creating films, cartoons, or series and always had incredible ideas. For example, when he wants to imitate the running horse, he uses 2 coconuts. It seems a little bit old-fashioned, but when we hear it with a proper scene in front of our eyes, we actually hear the sound of hooves hitting the ground. Mark has also used such materials as leaves, iron boxes, or sticky tapes, and was able to fool our senses with a great success. For those who are still not sure it is possible, try to find some of his works on the internet. We can assure you that watching him working is as interesting as listening to his creations. Stefan Fraticelli. Another well-known name when it comes to the world of sound effects is Stefan Fraticelli. On his account on the Instagram, everyone can observe him at work and discover his outstanding ideas. No surprise, he has been often invited by producers and directors to create something for the movies, and so we can hear his inventions in such hits like 500 Days of Summer or Silent Hill. He has even got his own recording studio. In this magical world, he is able to produce the most unimaginable sounds with the use of some plain and everyday tools like wicks, brushes, bicycle wheels, and many others. What is very interesting and visible in his videos, Stefan stays really concentrated and focused while working. Just take a look at his poker-like face.